Well, this is a wildly different presidential race than just a few days ago. We've heard a lot from politicians about Vice President Harris taking over for Joe Biden at the top of the Democratic ticket. But the crucial question is, what do voters think? And today we're going to get the first snapshot of how they view Kamala Harris, who used her first rally as the presumptive presidential nominee to go after Donald Trump head on.
He and his extreme Project 2025 agenda will weaken the middle class. Like, we know we got to take this seriously. Can you believe they put that thing in writing? When you read it, you will see Donald Trump intends to cut Social Security and Medicare. He intends to give tax breaks to billionaires and big corporations and make working families foot the bill. America has tried these failed economic policies before, but we are not going back.
And I'm here with CNN's David Chalian to break down what we're learning in this important new poll. Take it away.
Well, we got our first look at a Harris-Trump race that is no longer hypothetical. And what you see here is there's no clear leader in the top line of the horse race here. A 3-point margin. That's within the margin of error, Dana. Donald Trump at 49% support. Kamala Harris at 46% support. That's about half the margin that we saw in the Biden versus Trump matchup the last couple of months that we polled. That was a 6-point race. This one now is a 3-point race. And if you look here, broken out by party, you see near total consolidation among Democrats for Harris, similar, more than 9 in 10 Republicans for Trump. Take a look here at the independents. Trump has 46%, Harris has 43%. Biden was losing independents to Trump in the last couple of months, according to our polling, by roughly 10 points. Wow. Now Harris is just losing them by 3, though remember, Biden won them by 13 points in 2020 when he won that election.
Now let's talk about the coalition. What the president, now former candidate for re-election, Joe Biden, really struggled with was holding the Democratic coalition together. Where is Kamala Harris on that?
She's definitely making up ground with some of these key core constituencies. If you look here, this is a poll that we did with SSRS, contacting people we had polled in April and June, right? So you can actually track the movement. And you see here, young voters, it was a 7-point advantage for Trump in the spring over Biden. Now Kamala Harris has a 4-point advantage among young voters. Black voters, Joe Biden had a 47-point advantage in the spring. Kamala Harris has increased that to a 63 percentage point advantage there. Hispanic voters, Harris narrows Trump's advantage, but I just want to note again, Donald Trump numerically ahead among Hispanic voters within the margin of error. That was a key group in 2020 that Biden won overwhelmingly, so still work there to do for the Democrats. And among female voters, you see that Harris has increased the lead where they were tied among women when it was Biden on the ticket.
These numbers are fascinating, especially given that important piece of information you just gave us, which is that these our polling company, our colleagues, went back and talked to the exact same people that they talked to earlier. Okay, let's talk about what voters want from their presumptive new nominee.
One of the numbers that just jumped off the page when the poll came back, Dana, was this is among Democrats and Democratic-leaning independents. Do you want the next Democratic nominee, her name is Kamala Harris, we know, to continue Biden's policies or take the United States in a new direction? 53% say continue Biden's policies. 47% say take in a new direction. A near even split among Democrats looking for a new direction here. I think that is very interesting to watch forward how Kamala Harris campaigns on that. And then we've talked a lot about this all cycle long. Are you voting for a candidate or against a candidate? Take a look at what a difference a couple days make. For Harris, now it splits evenly. 50% of Harris supporters say they are casting their vote for her. 50% say they're doing it against Trump. Look at what that was when Biden was the nominee. 2/3 of his votes were against Trump. Only about a third, 37%, were for him. Harris changes that equation. Donald Trump, by the way, gets more affirmative support after the assassination attempt, after his convention. He's now up to 74% of his voters who say they are voting to cast their ballot for him. Only a quarter say they're casting their ballot to be opposed to Kamala Harris, Dana.
So interesting. So much to dig in on. I'm over at the table now, as you can see, and David's going to be here in just a moment, joining us here already. Excuse me, are CNN's Phil Mattingly and Sung Min Kim of the Associated Press. Hello. What is, Phil, I'm going to start with you.
Yep.
Excuse me, what's your takeaway of what David just laid out?
That last data point is the one I'm most fascinated by, and nerding out on some level, probably going a few layers deeper than maybe most people will be at this point in time. But I think what that shows is what I think a lot of us have picked up over the course of the last 36 hours, 48 hours, which is if you want to know what a collective exhale of an entire political party looks like, look into these numbers, both in the affirmative support of the vice president, 50%, where I think Joe Biden was at 37%, as David was just showing through. They are excited about a candidate when they weren't prior to now. Because of that, you are seeing many of the groups that form up their coalition, as David was running through, start to come back home, which was always the pitch from the Biden team. They'll come back home eventually. They'll have to come back home eventually. They weren't coming back home. They may have, but they weren't up until the last couple of days. They are starting to now in the key demographic groups. I think that's critical. I think the big question right now is, I don't know that this changes what we would have assumed would have been the dynamics of what we knew was going to be a very, very close race. At all on that front. It's just a matter of, can the coalition continue to come home in its entirety? And most importantly, those kind of 100 to 150,000 voters in those 7 critical states, where are they? And I think that's always going to be the question now that things seem to be aligning how Democrats and Republicans expected them to.
Yeah, and that's obviously, this is a national snapshot. It's important for us to see this. It's going to be those battleground states, wherever they are at this point, that will tell us who is going to ultimately become president next time around. But just on that question of coming home, a phrase that you just used, let's look at another way to approach our new numbers that we're just getting out. The question, the choice for president, basic question. Right now, Trump is still up 3. Again, this is a margin of error situation. But back just a couple months ago, if you look from April through June, up 6. So there is a slight shift in the direction of the Democrats.
And a slight shift because of the numbers that David pointed out, that so much of the key parts of that Biden-Harris coalition in 2020 are energized and excited for their Democratic nominee again. And, just going back to Phil's point, when, the Biden campaign's whole theory of the case is that once you put Joe Biden up against Donald Trump, people are going to remember what they didn't like about the Trump White House and then come home to the Democratic Party. But kind of politics 101 is you do have to be excited for your party's candidate. And it's just this level of enthusiasm that we're seeing for the Democratic Party is nothing that we saw on the scale of what we saw on Joe Biden's behalf for so much of the last year and a half. And another number that I was just so struck by in the poll, where it said 90% of Democrats approved of Biden's decision to end his candidacy. I mean, we knew that that tells you his staying in the race was going to be an unsustainable situation. And just whether that energy of the Democratic Party right now, bleeds into those independent voters that are so critical that President Biden won in 2020, that, former President Trump is doing better with right now, yet to be seen clearly. But I think that, I don't know if Democrats could have had a better 48 hours.